Before the atomic bomb, another weapon changed the face of war. A weapon that could not be intercepted, could not be heard coming, and arrived before anyone realized they were in danger. It was the V2, the world's first ballistic missile. Londoners would later say, if you heard the explosion, you had survived. More than 1,400 rockets struck Britain, over 2,700 killed, and more than 6,500 injured. Belgium was hit even harder, with more than 1,600 strikes. France and the Netherlands too. Entire neighborhoods erased in a flash. The single deadliest V2 attack hit a crowded cinema in Antwerp. More than 500 civilians died in seconds. Entire families gone. There was nothing anyone could do. No warning, no defense. So, what's the history of the V2 rocket? Before the V2 came the V1, the Doodlebug. It had a loud puttering pulse jet engine, and everyone knew the rule. When the sound stopped, that's when the danger came. One RAF pilot even tipped a V1 mid-air with his wing, knocking it off course before it could hit London. It was a dangerous, desperate improvisation, but it sometimes worked. But the V2 was different. It came screaming down from space, faster than any aeroplane, faster than sound itself. By the time you heard anything, the explosion had already happened. Civilians tried to adapt, building shelters. Some shrugged and simply said it was like lightning. If it's your time, it's your time. Others lived in constant fear. Every walk, every breath, a terror that followed them everywhere. It was psychological warfare, designed to break the spirit long before it broke the body. This weapon was born in secret, in a place called Peenemünde. Here, Wernher von Braun and his rocket team developed the most advanced propulsion system the world had ever seen. Liquid oxygen fuel, gyroscopic guidance, and a curved ballistic arc that reached the edge of space. A rocket that could travel 200 miles, land on a city, and leave nothing but a crater. Hitler named it the Vergeltungswaffe 2, the vengeance weapon. Nazi propaganda portrayed it as unstoppable, a sign that German science would turn the war around. And for a brief, terrifying moment, it almost looked like it could. This map shows all of London's known V2 impacts. A dense scatter across the city, showing dozens of recorded strike locations. The V2 was not a precision weapon by modern standards. Its circular error probable, or CEP, was measured in kilometers, which meant the rocket could be aimed only at a general area rather than a single building. In practice, that made the V2 most effective at striking densely populated zones like central London. Aim for the city, and within that CEP radius, the rocket would fall and detonate, seemingly at random, among whatever lay below. One of the most brutal examples of that area effect targeting was the strike on Smithfield Market on the 8th of March 1945. That morning, the market was especially crowded. People queuing for rations, many women and children among them. At about 11:03 a.m., the V2 hit the corner of Charterhouse Street and Farringdon Road, directly striking J.J. Mack & Sons and nearby stalls. The blast was catastrophic. Official accounts and memorials estimate around 110 people were killed, with many more suffering terrible injuries and loss of livelihood. The scene was carnage. Bodies, shattered stalls, collapsed structures, and the terrified survivors became one of the great civilian tragedies inflicted on London by the V2 campaign. When Allied bombing damaged the production facilities, the Nazis moved V2 construction underground to Mittelwerk, a massive tunnel network carved by forced labor from the Dora Mittelbau concentration camp. Tens of thousands of prisoners were worked to death. Starvation, disease, executions. For every civilian killed by a V2 rocket, More than 10 prisoners died building it. The tunnels became a factory of death long before the rockets ever reached their targets. Von Braun visited Mittelwerk repeatedly, and after the war claimed he only cared about going to space, that he was powerless to stop the cruelty. Historians are unconvinced. Survivors recalled seeing him watch slave laborers being beaten and saying nothing. Human genius and human evil bolted together in steel. Even when the British learned how to detect rocket launches, they couldn't warn civilians in time. So, they fought the only way they could, with intelligence. MI5 fed false impact reports back through double agents, making the Germans believe their rockets were overshooting London. German engineers corrected this mistake, and the rockets began falling short, saving the city's center and countless lives. A V-2 test rocket crashed mostly intact in a marsh near Sarniki, Poland. Local Polish Home Army units acted fast, hiding the wreck from SS patrols. They dismantled it, photographed every component, and packed the most critical parts into 19 separate suitcases. Getting the parts out of occupied Poland seemed almost impossible, but in Operation Windhorn 3, a single RAF Dakota flew from Brindisi, Italy, deep into enemy territory for a midnight pickup. Home Army troops prepared a sugar beet field, guiding the plane in with oil lanterns. The loading was frantic. The plane sank deep into the mud, but wooden boards from farm carts allowed it to take off again, returning safely to Allied territory with the rocket parts. It was one of the most daring intelligence coups of the war, and almost no one outside Poland heard about it for decades. These components allowed British scientists to understand the V-2, how it worked, how it guided itself, and what the future of warfare and spaceflight might look like. Even as the Reich collapsed, the rockets kept flying. Launches continued until just 6 weeks before Germany surrendered. It was desperation, vengeance, a nation lashing out in its final breaths. Some believed these missiles would still change the outcome of the war. Others simply wanted the world to burn with them. As Berlin fell into ruins, the future was already being decided elsewhere. Who would seize the rockets? Who would seize the scientists? The space race had begun before World War II had even ended. Werner von Braun once said, "We aim for the moon, but sometimes we hit London." It was dark humor, a chilling reminder that the same vision that takes us to space can also be turned towards destruction. The V-2 rocket was both a marvel and a nightmare, the moment when human ingenuity and human cruelty met in the same machine. It proved what we are capable of, and how dangerous that brilliance becomes when guided by vengeance instead of hope. The technology that once rained death from the sky would one day launch satellites, space probes, and the Saturn V rocket that carried humans to the moon. Today, we dream of becoming an interplanetary species. Rockets are symbols of exploration and the future. But it's important to remember where this technology began. In darkness, fear, and unimaginable suffering. We celebrate the achievements, but we must also honor the victims who paid for it. Our journey to the stars started with shadows on Earth.